everyone. It's that time of the week again where we talk everything hoops on the Alley-Oop program, brought to you by me, Andrew Gaze, and my very good friend, very astute judge, and a well-accomplished participant at all levels of basketball. I speak of none other than the legendary Leonard Copeland. Copes, great to have you on board again this week.
Drewy, I am happy to be here. Basketball is back on television. I'm watching so much basketball, I don't know what to do, pal. NBA's back.
It is, and it's coming a great time, particularly if you live in Victoria. And our hearts go out to everyone in the great state of Victoria in stage 4 lockdown. It's unusual times, but one that we say cheerio to everyone, and hopefully everyone's keeping their spirits high and staying safe, because it's a challenging time. But we might be able to bring a bit of relief as well, because we have got a huge show, some fantastic guests as well.
We always have a good guest, though, Joe. We keep the guests rolling. You know that?
We do.
Notice that? Yeah.
Well, last week we went with the assistant coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, who are on the cusp of yet another title in Phil Handy. Well, this week we take it down a notch, but still on equal status with none other than the great Dave Patrick. He was a former teammate of ours, and many years ago, he's played in the NBL, grew up in Australia, but he's made his name as one of the great coaches and recruiters in the college system. And
they say the best recruiter coming out of Australia. That's what they call him, the best recruiter coming out of Australia.
Well, the evidence speaks for itself. He got Ben Simmons to LSU. If you think of Patty Mills, Matty Dellavedova, and that channel of players that have gone through St. Mary's, he was a key factor when he was the assistant coach there. He's recently been the head coach of Riverside, and just a couple of weeks ago, he announced that he's moving on from Riverside to become the assistant head coach. Now, you might have to explain to me, Copes, what an assistant head coach, because I thought you were either the assistant or the head coach, but if you're the assistant head coach, that may be something completely different. The
assistant head coach makes a lot of money, but doesn't take all the blame, okay? Just remember that.
A lot of responsibility.
Absolutely.
But he's gone to Arkansas, big, massive program in the Southeastern Conference. So it's a big move for him. So really looking forward to him. But as you mentioned, Cope, isn't it great to have the NBA back on? A lot of things bubbling around. And probably what we saw last week is yet another example of the NBA using its platform to promote social justice. We spoke a few weeks ago about names on the back of the jerseys, but now that the season has actually started, we've seen players taking a knee, which is all expected during the anthem, as a form of protest and an outstanding way to the players to show their support for the Black Lives Matter.
That's 99% of the players, too. That's 99% of the players, probably a little bit more than that.
Well, that's right. And to get your view on, there's been some, including Greg Popovich, who's very outspoken. There has been some that have decided not to take a knee. I have no problem with that. They all have valid reasons, but there are some that have decided not to. Any issues with you, Copes?
None whatsoever, because Popovich is one of the strongest advocates for social change.
Yes,
he speaks out, and he speaks well about it. Mm-hmm. And look, if he decides he doesn't want to take a knee, then that's his prerogative. Yes. We're still with us. And the good thing is, like I said, 99% of the players are on board, and hopefully we can make a change. And the other good thing is, LeBron James speaks so well after every game.
My word.
About it, and he keeps it, fresh in the people's minds.
Well, that's right. And a few others. There was Miles Leonard, who I think it was his brother that was in the armed forces, and not that he was not using as an anti-Black Lives Matter protest, but he did it for different reasons. Same with Jonathan Isaac, who unfortunately has to have a knee reconstruction, got hurt.
Yeah,
and Copes, if you want to look at the ugly side of humanity, go and have a look at some of the comments that Jonathan Isaac was receiving, the way in which that they were vilifying him for his stance on the Black Lives Matter. He gets hurt, and just a real horrific comments.
Yeah, Drew, that's just people that are ignorant. They don't know what they're talking about. Just want to have something negative to say.
Hey, Copes, with regards to the social justice issues, There's been some debate in the last, for a long time, but more directly to what's going on in the NBA right now is whether the NBA is going too far. They're using their platform too much to express social issues. I don't see it that way, but there are many that do and just say, hey, you guys shut up and play basketball. We don't want to, you might have those views, but keep them to yourself. There's another arena for that. Now, I completely disagree with that. What's your take?
My take is this is the right time because of all the things that have happened over the last couple of months, but really that has been happening over and over. This is the perfect platform. I mean, you got a lot of, and let's just keep it for real. We got a lot of Black Americans who play basketball, who make a lot of money.
Yes.
And they want to use their platform to say, look, enough is enough. You guys, it's time for social change. If you don't get it right, we're not going to play basketball. And guess what? If there's no sport, then people will listen and really decide that we got to make a change.
Hey, Coach, let's get talking about some of the games that we have seen. Some incredible performances. And the one that I want to focus on was the game between the Houston Rockets, who had 153, and they beat the Dallas Mavericks 149.
That game went in overtime, didn't it? Wasn't that overtime game as well?
Yes, it did. And notwithstanding that, it's still numbers that you normally equate to an all-star game where no one's playing defense. Absolutely. And I'm all for diversity in style and strategy. But for me, you look at that score and you go, wow, that must have been an unbelievable game. I watched that game and I was not overly entertained in that
Why,
game.
Drewy? Tell me why. Because here's a man, wait a minute.
Yes.
Here's a man that played for the Melbourne Tigers.
Yes.
Didn't you guys in 1990, 1991?
Yes.
Didn't you score 178 points?
Excuse me, 186.
Thank you. So are you going to sit here now in your seat and say you didn't enjoy that game? Are you saying that?
Yes,
Did you enjoy playing in the game when you scored 186?
Playing in it is different.
Okay, then. So
you
can't have it both ways, Drew.
Yeah, but I'm talking about as an entertainment spectacle.
Okay.
And to me, I look back on that game, that all-time highest scoring game where we had 186. The Illawarra Hawks were in the 150s or something. And I actually feel a bit of embarrassment about that game.
Why? Because there's no defense played?
There was no defense played. None whatsoever. And Coach, it was just ridiculous. Now in this one here, and I guess it's a indicative or perhaps an exaggerated example of what we're seeing a lot in the NBA these days. Shoot the three, and in that game, I think Houston set a record for number 3-point field goals attempted. So shoot the three or get to the rim, and that theory and that the beauty of passing, of man ball movement, all those things are not there. Now, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy it, but I'm concerned that we're going down a path that it's becoming so individualistic and it's so much about coming down and jacking up threes. I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, the game has changed. Obviously, back in our day, it was more system. It was more about system, running plays. Now these guys are bigger, stronger. They're better shooters, I want to say.
Yep.
So, look, the game, it is what it is. The game is going to change. You just have to evolve with the game. And there's only a couple of teams that really do that. You look at Houston, you look at Dallas, you look at Golden State. They're the only ones that really just jack up threes and score a lot of points.
Well, they do. I think the big question is, can you actually win the title? The Houston Rockets have shown you can be really, really good. Small ball, you can get really close.
Right.
And if not for a couple of unlucky breaks for them, a couple of seasons ago, they probably beat the Golden State Warriors in that series they had, where the Warriors went on to win. But can you win the ultimate prize with that philosophy and that lineup?
Listen to me. With that lineup, no way. I'm going to say it now. The Houston Rockets are the best three-point shooting team in the league. They got some great players, and look, they have some great talent.
Yes.
But when your center is 6'6" or 6'7", all right, and that's the tallest guy on your team, there is no, and you got to play in a 7-game series. There is no way you're going to win a championship. I'll put my hand up now and say they got a long way to go if they think that lineup's going to win them a championship.
Well, and I guess to demonstrate how there are different philosophies is we take a look at the Denver Nuggets lineup and their size. You got 7 foot, 6'8", 7'2", 6'7", 6'11", and then you look at this lineup that the Rockets have been using quite regularly, where their tallest guy on the floor is 6'7". It presents problems. I don't have a problem with small ball as such. My problem is more with just this complete emphasis on the 3-point shot.
Drewy, you can't talk like that. You love the 3 ball.
I do.
So now all of a sudden you sit back and you watch someone else do what you did for 50 years. You don't like it. Are you
Copes, no, Copes. It's about balance. Okay. And we played in a system where we were heavily skewed that way for the time, relatively speaking, for the time. Right. No one's skewed like this. Can
I ask you one question? Yeah. What's the most amount of threes you had in a game? Do you remember?
It would have been plus? 14.
14 plus is the highest number of threes you've had.
Yeah, the most I ever made in a game, I think, was 10. But the most I ever took might have been may have been 16 or 17, something like that when I had that 10. So, right. But if you look when we played Copes and looked at percentage of 3-point field goal attempts as opposed to 2, it is vastly different. It was heavily skewed towards 2s.
The game's changed. We didn't have James Harden, who can shoot it from half court, pal.
So you have no problems. You're fully entertained with what you see on the floor.
Well, for different reasons. I'm fully entertained because there's nothing else on television.
Nothing. I know that.
All right. But listen.
That's true.
If I had to watch the Rockets play, I'll watch them play. I mean, I enjoy them playing basketball. I enjoy the game.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, and don't get me, I enjoy it too, but I guess I'm saying it's a relative thing. I get far more enjoyment out of seeing teams that perhaps have a little bit more balance and system, albeit that everyone these days has that theory of the 3-ball, get to the rim, 3-ball, get to the rim, but it's the way in which you create that 3-point shot or you create that opportunity to get to the rim that I think is where you can see a bit more diversity.
So you have a problem with Golden State as well then? You obviously have a good problem with Golden State?
No, because I think that they find that balance. And like I said, the numbers might from time to time look similar, but it's the way in which they create those opportunities is the key. Okay. But coming down, dribbling the ball 28 times, and then down, step back 3, I like it every now and again, and you see some amazing shots, and I got tremendous respect for the athletes involved, but I don't know. I just feel like that sometimes the balance is a little off skew. Hey, Copes, we ended last show with you suggesting that the Los Angeles Clippers are the team to beat, and Absolutely. In the opening game we saw a barn burner. I don't think it was necessarily the greatest game of NBA basketball you're ever going to see, but we've got the Lakers coming out on top 103, and they beat the Clippers 101. Now, there's a lot of water.
Did you watch that game?
Yes, I did. And I saw the great man, LeBron James, when the game is on the line. He never had, by his standards, an outstanding game. But he still, when the game was on the line, got it done.
He got it done. He made a shot. But if you look at his numbers compared to the other numbers, Drewy, what do you end up with? What do you have, 16 points that game? Drewy, come on, man. Listen.
You're forgetting about the rebounds.
We all love the Lakers. We all love LeBron. Yep. But again, the Clippers were missing their number 1 6-man coming off the bench. Or their 2 6-men coming off the bench.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that's Harrell and Williams. Lou Williams, because he enjoyed some chicken wings from a strip.
The chicken wing man, yes, we know.
Yes.
If you're going to say the Lakers are better than the Clippers now, and they're missing 2 pieces that score 15 plus, I might add.
Yep.
Put another 30 points with the Clippers. Lakers ain't got a chance, bro. They don't have a chance.
Well, they absolutely have a chance, and you are fully aware that they have a very good chance. But yes, I agree that there's a lot of water to go under the bridge. But it was a nice win by the Lakers to get things rolling. Hey, Copes, just a casual observation here, and getting back to the point of entertainment in games.
Yep.
Do you think the officiating, there's always been this conspiracy theory that entertainment overrides the finite, real small details.
Entertainment sells tickets. People want to see close games, Drew. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, what I'm saying, there are rules, but the officials understand the theatre of the game.
Right.
And then will officiate the game according to the theatre of the game.
Yes.
More so than what is actually happening.
That happens around the world, and it's been happening since I put my basketball shoes on. So the crowd sometimes influence the referees.
Yeah, no, but I'm going beyond that. I'm going beyond a policy, not a written policy, an unwritten policy that there is some.
Are you saying perhaps they're saying
instructed to say, well,
keep the game tight?
We keep the game tight, or if you're down to those final minutes and there's something can happen. Did you see the earlier on we saw the Boston Celtics playing against the Miami Heat?
Yeah, I saw that game. Yes.
It gets down to a 6-point differential. The Celtics make a shot. They come down and they're playing keep things off because it's 13 or so seconds. And they've got a 3-point lead. So they're in a commanding position. It whips around, they're playing keep things off. It gets to Andre Iguodala, who just happens to be the worst free throw shooter on the court. And I think he might have been 2 of 3 of 9 before that. So just coincidentally, it goes to the worst free throw shooter on the court. And he passes it to someone directly underneath the basket that could have had 3 layup attempts even if they missed their first.
I saw that one, yes.
Now, it was a marginal call at best. And they'd made 3 or 4 passes where they just couldn't get to him. But this was yet another example of trying. It just so happened that they decided to call something a bit soft.
Now, my question to you is, do you have a problem with that, though? Do you? I mean, say for instance, Adam Silver, and we're just saying this. Say Adam Silver says, look, fellas, we want to keep the game tight.
Yes.
Game's just coming back. We want to entertain these people. We don't want to see any blowouts where the score is 140 to 97, because then we're going to lose our audience. Yes. We don't have people in the stands. We want people on to watch the game on TV.
Yes.
And we want the game to be tight. Do you have a problem with that?
Well, I do. I do. I think that there is a line where you can draw to say context of the game is important. I don't think, from what you're saying, that they'll go out there and officiate to stop a blowout. A blowout is a blowout. They couldn't do that, because a blowout, even if you're calling it really off center, you can't do that. It's when it's down to those pivotal moments at the end. And I think you're right. Each league is different. I suppose the extreme used to be FIBA, where it was almost irrelevant. Context of the game was almost irrelevant. A foul is a foul. A violation is a violation. And the spirit of the game sort of is taken away a little bit. Now, they've even softened their stance in recent times as well. But is it – and I'm not saying it is, and it might just be me looking at this through different glasses because it's such an unusual set of circumstances.
Yeah.
But it does appear there's just been a few things happen, and maybe because I'm watching so much of it, that you sort of look at it and you go, well, gee, it seems like this decision is made for different reasons other than...
Well, maybe,
did you have a problem with it, Copes?
I don't have a problem with it, especially if it doesn't bother the outcome of the game. As long as it doesn't...
Well, how do you ever know? That could have. He misses that free throw, 2 free throws. They come down, they hit a 3-pointer, it goes into overtime. That's what I'm saying. It does open it up to some
possibly. But whenever I had a problem with referees when I played,
yes,
I'd ask these kind of questions, and they would say, referees are human.
Yes.
They make mistakes. And on top of that, these guys have been out of practice for a while as well. So
yes,
we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully they won't screw up too many calls.
Well, it's you're right. I think there's a big difference between what you see because of fans influencing the officials. Hey, we live with that. We know that's a part of the game. Fans, when they're there and there's those 50-51s and they're there.
But Drew, I think that's worse though, because I've had arguments with referees. Whenever we're coming down the court and someone's charged or made a foul and the fans are yelling and screaming, the referees tend to listen to the fans.
Well, it's human nature. I don't think they intentionally do it. I think it's just human nature.
Well, that's what I mean. That's the same thing now.
And I have no problem with – that's what I'm saying. I have no problem with that. But there was just a couple of things that happened that I'm thinking, oh, well, but we'll wait and see.
We'll keep an eye on it and see what happens.
We will keep an eye on it. Hey, Copes, Devin Booker is a superstar.
He's a gun.
In the making.
He's a gun.
And the Phoenix Suns were in a situation where they were really making up the numbers, I thought. They were 13th. The only reason they're in the bubble is that they were within that rule of being within 5 games of the 8th place team. So they had to get there. But I don't think any of us really gave them a chance of making the finals.
They haven't lost a game, though. Have they lost a game? They haven't lost a game.
Well, as we're recording, and it might be different for others, but at the time of this recording, 3-0, and Devin Booker hitting an unbelievable fadeaway,
with a hand in his
crazy
face. With a hand in his face, and he still made the shot.
Now, they're 3-0. What do you think? Can they actually make it? You're looking at the West, primarily they're the ones that have got more of a battle. They got 13 teams as opposed to 9 on the East. They've beaten the Wizards, the Mavs, and as we mentioned in that one with that game winner over your mob, the Clippers. All of a sudden, starting to believe from what I've seen.
Well, they're 29 and 39.
Yes.
And Memphis are 32 and 36, Joey.
Yes.
Now, Phoenix would have to win the next 3 games.
Yes.
And Memphis and Portland would have to lose the next 3 games. So I don't think it's going to happen. But as you say, Phoenix have won 3 games that we didn't think they were gonna win. But who knows? I mean, Booker's an absolute superstar. He was like that last year. He can shoot the ball. He's a dynamic scorer.
Yep.
And he's taking people. He's fooling a lot of people.
Yep.
So,
and DeAndre Ayton. You look at DeAndre Ayton, Ricky Rubio. Believe it or not, we sort of call him one of the veterans of the competition. That point guard, the team they put together. They have, to me, have been the biggest shock. And the San Antonio Spurs are playing some inspired basketball as well. So there's still a bit to go before we get into those play-in, not the playoffs, the play-in where you've got the chance to actually make your way into the top eight. The major interest, of course, is in the West because there's more teams vying for those last spots. And then in the East, we've got it's really going to say, well, can the Wizards get up, Copes? Who are they battling with?
They're battling with Orlando and Brooklyn right now.
Yes.
And I've watched the Wizards. They don't impress me. I mean, they got talent. Obviously, they've lost a couple of their superstars. But I just don't think they can get up. They've only won 24 games. So, I don't think they can do it. I really don't.
Well, one man that would have a far greater understanding of the prospects of these teams, because not only has he spent time in the college system, but he has also spent some time with NBA organisations, and that is the great Dave Patrick. And I think those and many more are some of the questions that we need to pose to Dave Patrick. Dave, thanks very much for joining us on the LEU program. It's a global sensation, let's be honest, Copes, and we only take the very best, and that's why we've got you on. But Dave, tell us, before we get into the basketball stuff, life in the United States right now, we hear a lot about it with COVID-19. It looks pretty bleak, but how is it just around the streets and what's going on in the United States?
Yeah, look, Drewy and Copes, thanks for having me on your show, mate. It's a pleasure. Look, it's weird because I'm in California and they look at it, COVID, like everything's shut down here. And I'm in a transition to moving to Arkansas. where there's kind of everything's going. So it's like two different parts of the country are doing two different things. And so it looks bleaker, I think, from your side of the world to here. Like people are still functioning. Like our kids are planning on going to school next week on Friday. And so there's still some action happening, but every day things change, especially depending what region of the country you're in.
And like I said, we only see what we see on the news, and 160,000 people dying of COVID, and yet you've still got what appears to be a pretty open community. From your perspective, as far as basketball and preparing your teams, has it been shut down, or where you at?
Look, so I think that there again depends where you were. So when I was at UC Riverside here, they were shut down, and they're still shut down to this point. As I moved to Arkansas, they've been going since June 1, and the resources there allow you to kind of create your own bubble, kind of like the NBA, where we have our own practice facility, and they live together, and then they practice together and eat together, so we can create our own bubble because of the resources. But not everybody's able to do that, and so it's still tricky depending where you are in terms of your resources and what you can spend on your athletes.
Dave, let's get to the nitty gritty now. Enough of all this. How you doing in America? We know America's in shit trouble right now. Let's get to the nitty gritty. All right. Now, I got a real question for you because I know you from way back. How did you go in there and tell your wife we're moving again, Dave? How many times have you moved? Now, I applaud the move. But how many times have you moved, and how did you tell your wife, babe, we got to move again?
Well, if you include before kids and after kids, it's like 18 times, bro.
What?
It's like 18
goodness.
times, man. So she's a pro, not that kind of pro, but a professional mover. So she knows what to do. Like I came in yesterday, the boxes were packed. Like we still got a couple more boxes to pack, and we're leaving Saturday. And for my kids, my daughters, as you know, Cope, my oldest is 14. My youngest is 10. This is their sixth move, and that's a lot when you're a kid. But I think in our profession, especially when you're trying to be a coach and get your way up the ranks, whether it's professional or college, you got to have a partner and a family that are willing to do that with you and sacrifice with you. So they know my common goal, which is to be the best coach I can be. And so, they were excited about the move.
Coach, we all know it's an easy transition when there's an extra zero on the documents that you're going to sign. Then the Dahl, she goes, "What are we doing, Dave?" And then she looks at these extra zeros. She said, "I'm packing, Dave. I'll be
The dinero helps, mate. The dinero.
We look at your progression and you see Nicholls State, St. Mary's, LSU, TCU, and then you've got your head coaching position at Riverside. And now we all know the difference between Riverside and Arkansas. There's programs, resources, all those things. But I think a lot of people just assume that once you become a head coach, that maybe it's a little difficult to go back to where you're no longer the head coach. What was as far as your pathway to where you want to go, how did that fit in?
Yeah, look, Eric Musselman, who I'm working for, he's a former NBA head coach, but he's in my coaching tree. He was at San Diego with Randy Bennett, who was my boss at St. Mary's, and we've been friends for 15, 16 years, and our wives are friends, our kids are friends, and I had actually brought Eric to LSU when he was an assistant before he became a head coach in college, and so it's a unique relationship there. And so when he called, this is his second year at Arkansas, I saw it, Drewy, more as a partnership more than going as an assistant, and saw it as another avenue to continue to grow. And ultimately for me, I want to be a head coach at the Power 5 level, which is, the SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, or one day, maybe be an NBA head coach. And I thought you have to get yourself back to that level after being at Riverside, that there's a big gap. You don't know that till you take that step. But now I know it, and I've also been able to, prove to people I can coach now. Hopefully that opportunity comes, whenever that may be.
Wow. Now, Dave, you're known as a very good recruiter. Do you have anyone in mind? Any kids you're looking at from Australia right now? Or I don't want to put anybody's name out there, but is there anybody you're looking at now that you could bring over to Arkansas?
There's a couple. These crazy NCAA rules that are over here. There's so many, I can't really say their names, but there's a couple, you know, and you need the elite ones that are typically at the COE, or the guys that are floating around Melbourne and Sydney and Perth that may not be there. But this league, as you guys know, it's an athletic league. It's long. You know, you're playing against pros damn near every day. And so it's only, you know, there's a small percentage of Australians that can play there, or anybody, Americans included. But we're definitely looking at a few kids over there. And why not? I mean, Australia's, you know, when you talk about world basketball, it's, you know, top 3 or 4 in the world. And so everyone's hip to it, and we're going to try to get the best ones we can out of there.
Hey, Dave, when you think of the pathway of Australian kids, and you know the Australian system better than anyone, and that's probably why you've been so successful with your recruiting of Australian kids. But a lot of kids are over there, and the pathway with college basketball still what you would consider the preferred option for these kids that want to go on to become pros, not necessarily in the NBA, but to become pros anywhere throughout the world.
Yeah, look, I think the main thing is, as I talk to Aussie kids, because I can't get them all, right? There's only 13 roster spots. But I think when you talk about young kids coming over, I think the fit, the program, and style of play are like the most important thing. It's not about where you are or how big the school is or how small it is. And I don't think Australians are catching up on it, but I don't think the youth know the importance of that. Because if you're going to come that far from that side of the world to here, you have to understand the politics that goes with it. And so, you know, my hope is that every kid from Australia at least picks the right level to play at and the right program, because what's good for me is not good for you, and so on and so forth.
Okay, enough about the college ball. Let's talk NBA now. You're very good friends with Ben Simmons and the Simmons family. We play with Dave, and me and Drew have had this argument, or not argument, discussion.
Debate. Yeah.
Yes, debate. Do you think it's a good move to put Ben Simmons in the 4 spot now, rather than leaving him in the point guard position and having that ball?
Well, they had a thing on ESPN, so they called me out about 2 weeks ago on Sports Center. So my answer is written in stone. Okay. So here was my thought, and Ben can play 1 through 5, and that much we all know. I thought his success at LSU in college, when he was averaging 19 and 13 a game, was when he was the 4. And when he got the ball off the break, he could bring it, and he's great in transition and can make passes. I think in the NBA, when he's at the point, 48 minutes, people get under him, they wear him out, and he gets off the ball and he never gets it back. Whereas when he's at the 4 spot and he gets it in the trail, he's got a slower defender closing out to him. He can catch it in an elbow, make a move, and it forces him to rebound when he's at the 4 and 5 spot. I think when he's at the point and you're sending him back on transition defense, you take away what I think is his best asset, which is rebounding. Like he's a high level rebounder, and sometimes that gets pushed to the side when he's at the point. You know, and that's just from my vantage point. You know, so you see, I get on his butt when he gets 4 and 5 rebounds, because there's no way he should get 10. He should get 10 a night, as big as he is and athletic as he is. And I think when he's at the point, he sometimes runs back rather than going to the glass all the time.
So in other words, you and Drewy are on the same page, and I'm over here.
Well, no, not necessarily.
No problem, Drewy, no problem.
No. Well, what I think it is that the way the game's played these days, you do a bit of both anyway. You be able to incorporate that. It's just probably your points of emphasis. But the other thing, Dave, is his shot. I don't know of a player that's had his shot more scrutinised than Ben Simmons. For me, for no reason. I say, well, if in his head he doesn't feel like he's going to be able to make them, then you probably shouldn't be taking them. But I think from what I've noticed, his free throws and even his stroke is looking a little better. He's not so much to the right as he used to be, and it's looking a little bit better. Is it more in his head, or is it just that as the ultimate team guy that he just says, well, there's others and there's other ways I contribute rather than being on the 3-point line?
You know, I think it's a bit of both. Like if you go watch him work out, he'll go 9 for 10 from 3. You know, and 8 from 10 in some spots is very rare. He's going, under 6, under 7. But some of that, as you two know, best shooters in the game, that some of it's a mental habit. You got to miss 10 in a row and you still shoot the 11th and 12th, and that takes time to do. This new age kid, like they read Twitter, they read Instagram. So what does that play into your thought process? If I miss this shot, Because every shot he misses, it's all over Twitter. It's all over Instagram. And every shot he makes, it's like a highlight. It's like,
one shot, he makes 1 3, and he makes ESPN. Come on, bro.
Yeah, exactly, man. You know, where you guys have been playing that era. And so it's different for him, you know, but I think it's evolving for him. And, you know, the one thing I say is he can do everything well. And so, like, when you do everything well, they got to pick something apart. You know, Drewy, you can shoot so well, then they say you couldn't guard. You know, Cope, you can fly.
He couldn't play any defense. He couldn't play
lockdown defender.
You know,
didn't mean wrong. Come on.
You know, Cope, same thing. Or they say he couldn't play the point. Like they got to pick something apart in your game. And for him, it's his shooting. And at 23 years old, you hope that'll fix itself. I think in due time.
Right. And what about as a coach? We've just been talking before you came on about style of play. And I was suggesting that, not that it's boring, but when you just see these guys come down, dribble the ball 48 times and then jack up a 3.
He's talking about the Houston Rockets, Dave. He's talking
about not just them, but into style of play. You don't see it as much in that type of play in college basketball, but like all these kids, now that you're at Arkansas, wanting to get to the NBA, they've sort of got to demonstrate those skills as well that way.
Has the game changed? Has the game changed?
There's no doubt the game's changed, but do we need to sort of correct a little bit from where we're going?
Here's my answer to that, Drew. So I went to Arkansas and Muss wanted me to take over the offense. And we are running Milwaukee's spread offense, like 5 out. Yep. You know, and that is unique to the college game. But Muss's sell coming from the NBA, and our sell is like, if you want to play at that level, then you probably got to adapt to the way the game's being played. Yep. And so it's 5 out. There's very rarely the post downs there that you're putting the ball in the post to. Now, am I a fan of it? I don't know. Like if you got Joel Embiid or one of those bigs that can score on the block, get your butt down in the post. But I don't know how many post players there are nowadays that really want to play with their back to the basket. You know, even Bangers with us this summer, Aaron Bangers, like he's roping threes, you know, and he's built like Adonis, you know, so I don't. Yeah.
So the game has changed. The game has changed a lot.
Yeah. You know, I know if you two were playing in this era, my God, you know, there wouldn't be too many 2/3. It'd just be bring it down.
Oh, we getting it up. We getting it up, man. We getting it up. You know what? Okay, when you at Riverside, what kind of offense did you run there? I mean, did you have a legitimate 5-man, or were you spreading the floor, or what kind of offense did you run?
Definitely. You know what? I tried to be opposite Copes, and we had a 7'3" kid in the post from New Zealand, a 7'2" kid in the post from New Zealand, and a 6'10" kid from Oakland. And I tried to go, 3 out, 2 in with smash mouth, because I'm like, well, let's play opposite to everybody else.
Right.
And so we won some games that we shouldn't have won this past year. You know, beating Nebraska and Fresno State and San Jose State, and try to play bully ball in the post, because everybody else is trying to play small and trying to play quick. And if you look at the NBA, like the Portland Trailblazers, they're kind of a tough matchup because they do have those 2 big posts, and Denver have those 2 big posts, which some teams don't have, you know. Right. And so that's how I tried to play as a head coach, because I wasn't going to get the great athlete here, but I figured I could get the size and the skill to at least give me some kind of evenness there when we played our opposition. Let's
think more local here too with the national team. You've been part of the national program the last couple of years, and what do you make of our Olympic team and where we're heading and our prospects of winning an elusive medal?
Look, Drew, I think, and you guys don't see it from there, but when I come back to the States and they're watching the Worlds, everybody, I was on so many Zooms talking about the culture and the style of play of Australian basketball. I've never done so many Zooms after coming back from that tournament, talking about flow and how do you defend and how does your team, how do you build culture and hustle the way that you guys do. And so, I mean, that's hats off to Basketball Australia in itself. So I think this group, it's obviously that it's a tight group. You know, when you talk about the cornerstones and Deli, Patty, Joey, Bangers, and if Bogut comes back, those 5 guys have won a lot of games and are on the brink of getting the medal. You know, and then when you throw in the addition of hopefully a Ben Simmons, a Dante Exum, a Josh Green in the future, you have a good group coming through with the young core guys coming through, and so. I think we're close to getting a medal. Australia is. Even last summer, you're talking about one free throw and you're playing for a medal. But that's how close it is. But I do think this group's unique, as you know, and you've been around them for a long time. That I think the added pieces that we'll be able to have will put us right there next summer.
Have you spoken to Brett Brown about your role and what you're expected to do and what you're expected to bring to the national team?
Yeah, look, there's been preliminary talks. The staff hasn't been all the way picked yet, but I'm hopeful that I'll be with Brett. And I think the unique thing about Brett, when you talk about all of us, like it's that Melbourne Tigers like connection. When I think 30 years ago being in Melbourne and Brett, coaching before you got there, coaching Drewy and coaching me in under 12s, and now he's coaching Ben and in the NBA. It's a crazy world. This basketball world of how small and unique it is. So we have talked a lot, and we talk about Ben a lot, over the phone, but I do think I'm hopeful that I'll have a role with them next summer.
And do you think Ben will play? It seems like he's highly motivated too, and he wants to, but every time he sort of gets an ankle tweak or he tweaked his knee the other day, you think selfishly, does this mean he might be a little bit more hesitant, which we can understand why. But what's your thoughts?
I can unequivocally say he wants to play for Australia. That's a fact. And I think last year, he had that contract, which we now know that he signed for $175 million, but that wasn't signed going into China. Yeah. And so, I don't know. I don't know what I'd be playing, and I get a tweak back, and I lose 100 coins.
That's right. I wouldn't play either. You crazy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, some of that played into it, but now you know your contract solidified for the next 5 years, so he can probably get another one if he stays injury free. And I think the Olympics is something that any young kid wants to do, and I know it's something that Ben wants to do. Provided obviously he's healthy.
Yeah.
Two more from me, and then I'll leave it over to you, Coach. But firstly, when you come back to Australia regularly, you've seen these elite level college kids foregoing a college career. So those high school kids that are going have their pick of the litter. They got their pick of whatever school they want to go to, and they say, no, I'm going to go and take my talents to the NBL, which we've seen over the last couple of years. One, do you think that that's going to continue now that the G League have up their ante in regards to money? And two, do you think it's a good pathway for these kids?
Look, I think the NBL is a good pathway, right? But I think you have to be a special player to play in that league. Like, it's a man's league, and it's a physical league. And I don't care how good you're in high school here, they don't allow you to play the way they let you play in the NBL. And so, LaMelo Ball's a freak, and I thought he did well in the league. But I went to watch the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and they had a kid that didn't get on the court. So you wondered to yourself, would he have been better off going to Arizona or to college and using that time to play? Because what I do know is the only way to get better is getting on the floor. Like, you have to play. And so if you think you're gonna move your way up the draft, I think you have to be on the floor and play like a ball, like a RJ Hampton. But I think the trend will definitely they'll definitely be going to college, I think. But I think this G League are going to give a challenge there to the NBL, because they don't want their old commodities over here coming over to Sydney and Melbourne and taking away from what they've grown here.
And the last one from me is that just a recommendation for kids. My son has just gone through this process of trying to get to college, and even with all my experience, it was a mind to say, well, how do you get exposure? You've got all these kids out there wanting to go to college, and they've got the stars in their eyes and the bright lights, and they all probably think they're a little bit better than what they actually are. Some of them. But there's all these agents now and groups offering services, some for exorbitant fees. What does a kid in Australia, a guy or a girl, that has reasonable talents, that's their pathway, what's the recommendation for them to find an appropriate program?
You know what, Drew? I think it depends on your resources, right? And so if you can afford to come with one of those programs that come in the summer, in the months of July, and play in the tournaments that are either in LA, Vegas, or on the East Coast in South Carolina, I think it's worth doing it. I think it's a good investment because then you're playing in front of college coaches. And so if you can't do that, now you may have to get some footage together of your games and start sending them out. But as you know, that's hard because the reality is that the American coaches don't understand the level of play, BJBL versus Siebel. I know Siebel's like a lot better league, or Big V's way better than any high school league over here. But coaches here don't know, and so I think you have to get footage to the right people, or try to find a way to come over here and play if you can do that as a year 11 kid or a year 10 kid, and try to get over here. And I think Basketball Australia's got a pathway that they're trying to produce for kids. But there again, Drewy, I think you have to, as a parent, try to do your best to find out, has this program had Australians before? And has this program, does the style of play fit my son or daughter? Those things matter. Do the academics, the degree going to help when I come back to Australia one day? Those things are important if you're not going to be an NBA or WNBA player, because we all know that ball starts bouncing at some point.
Dave, have you guys training at Arkansas already, or have you met the players yet?
Oh my God, yeah, we're going, Coach. We're one of the few programs in the country. We're on week 3, and so I've been going from Monday to Friday, and then coming back here on the weekends, and so we're going. We actually had one of our players, Isaiah Joe. He was first team All SEC, supposed to be a late first round, early second round pick. Just pull his name out of the draft and come back. So we have a pretty good team coming back. We're preseason ranked 24 in the country.
What was your record last year? What was your record last year?
They were 21-10 before the virus shut down. In year 1, and so you hopefully in year 2 you build on that. But there's definitely some talent over there.
You got to get going. We know you got your family with you, Drew. You got any more questions? Any more hard?
No. Well, we've got a million more, but we know your time is very precious. So we want to thank you for joining us today. I think it's great for our audience, particularly some of those college kids out there, because there's so many Australians. I think there's over 200 kids, isn't there, now in the United States playing college basketball. And you're a pioneer, one of the guys that really set a great path for some of our elite players. So we congratulate you on that, and thank you for your time. And most importantly, we say stay safe, because
hold on, Drew, before you go.
Yes.
Now, Dave, I said this to Phil Handy. I want to say it to you too, brother.
Yes.
I wear a double XL. If you don't send me a couple of T-shirts,
it's coming.
You guys are going to go 2-22 next year.
It's coming.
Hey.
You want a hat or you want a T-shirt, brother?
Well, look at the size of your head. Do I look like I'd wear a hat? No chance I'm wearing a hat with this head. Hey, I will say this, though. Copes is the sort of guy that he's been saying this to all our guests.
I'm going to keep saying it too. I'm going to keep saying
what? He'd happily take some of your old Riverside stock. That's how. Happily take.
Hey, we're sponsored by Nike, Drewy, so you get the first deal because Coach run that other stuff. I don't know the name of it.
That's it. Strategic, Copes. That's all strategic there. Thanks very much, Dave. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with the Razorbacks, and selfishly, even more good luck with the Mighty Boomers. It looks like it's going to be a fun ride for you.
Stay safe, Dave. Keep the family. Kiss the family for me.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. See you.
David Patrick is a superstar. He's done tremendous things for Australian basketball in the way in which that he's got Australian kids into really good college programs, taking care of them. He's got a lot to be proud of, and more recently with the work he's doing as an assistant coach in the Australian team. What a fantastic export to the United States, and great to see that he still has that affinity with Australia and is contributing to Australian basketball.
Man, he's a superstar. You know, when he was younger, when he used to train in North Melbourne, he used to ride home with me and dinner at my house every night.
Yes.
Every night. I forgot to mention that to him.
And you know what? He was one of those guys when he played, had tremendous respect for his elders, like you and me.
Yep.
but the annoying little quick shit he would just be around like a buzzsaw, but he'd be nice about it too, so you couldn't get angry at him, but he would just laugh at you and smile, and deep down you're saying, this annoying little SOB, I just want to, but went on to be a fantastic contributor, and we love him dearly. Yep. Coach, our attention turns to the NBL, and there's a bit going on. We've seen the COVID virus strike down the NBL with 12 Melbourne United players coming down with the COVID virus. Alarm bells are ringing, and we know for a fact that it's not just those 12 players, because some of their other family members have also contracted the virus as well. So it's wasn't the Phoenix training with some of those guys as well? I think the NBL have done an outstanding job. They've jumped on the front foot. They've shut down both organisations. Both organisations, to their absolute credit, have said, yep, we're shutting things down. Let's get safety is the most important thing. And we have nothing but good wishes and prayers for those that have been infected, and hopefully they've recovered soon and we move on. But it does illustrate to the basketball community how vulnerable everything can be. But more importantly, the most important thing is their health. But another consideration now is to say, well, what happens? You got to have plan B, C, and possibly D. A bubble situation has been discussed by New Zealand. Matt Walsh, the CEO and part owner, another great guy who's contributing to our league, presenting a possibility that perhaps you could set up a bubble in New Zealand where, as I understand it, there's no coronavirus. Is this something you think is viable and should be part of the NBL's thinking?
Well, it's something you certainly have to think about, because if you're going to bring basketball back, you got to be safe.
Yep.
Now, the problem with the NBL is you need crowds.
Mm-hmm.
You need crowds, okay? And look, if I'm an owner, I'm thinking about this because you're going to play games in different cities in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
My only concern is, will they get those crowds? I mean, we know when we coach that New Zealand have great fans, okay?
Yes.
But sometimes the crowds weren't as big as they should have been, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
To have a Cairns playing, are they going to get a crowd? Is it worth it?
Well, that's the economic decisions that they need to make, because let's cut to the chase. That is a big factor. The players
costs a lot of money, and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah. And I think the economics of it is the driving force behind whether or not you go down that path, or if you look at it and you say, hey, all these checks and balances that we take into consideration, don't feel pressured to start in December. If you have to push it back and you've got to start in January, if you have to push it back and you've got to start in February, as easy for us to say because we're not deriving an income from it.
Right.
Player safety, the health of the individuals involved, the health of the nation, and how we do that has to be the most important feature of their decision making. And as I'm sure it is. But to me, that's the most important thing. And the reality of it is, it's not like, well, just because we can play and it goes on television, the league is going to receive huge revenues from that. Tough decisions need to be made. I like the fact that that Matt Walsh is being proactive and trying to put up suggestions on how things can start. And he's hoping that that's not the problem and we're away at the start of December, but that's another consideration. But Copes, what about some of the player movement? The biggest news in the last 4 or 5 days for me, Lamar Patterson, and again, we're talking about New Zealand.
That is big news.
Ta-da, Brisbane. See us later. I'm taking my skills to New Zealand.
Yep.
Scotty Hobson, to me, was one of my favourite players. New Zealand believe it's an upgrade. New Zealand believe Lamar Patterson can provide more than Scotty Hobson.
Do you believe that?
I am not. There are pros and cons to both. I don't think it's obvious. I think they are both elite talent. Copes, put your coaches and general managers hat on. Forget about salary for a minute. Just pretend you're just talking about talent alone.
Yep.
Lamar Patterson or Scotty Hobson?
Again, that's a hard one. Scotty.
Yes, we know it's hard.
Scotty Hobson is a superstar, a little bit more flamboyant, gets to the rack, dunks on you, where Patterson is a smarter player, I think.
Yes.
He's a smarter player, and he gets the numbers every single night. I can't remember him playing a bad game. Even if he had a bad half, he'd come back that second half and play well. So I think I'd have to go with Patterson. And they didn't win with Hobson.
And they had injury issues throughout. They made some changes along the way. They had some unbelievable problems. But what a charge they made to put themselves in contention to get to write their season, get things back on track. Scotty Hobson was a big, big part of that. Hit a couple of game winners, and down the stretch, he was unbelievable. Great, versatile.
I'm telling you what, if I'm Melbourne United or Sydney Kings, I'm looking at Hobson, though.
I reckon 8 other teams should be at least picking up the phone because 100%. He's a star. 100%. He is a star. I love his game, and hopefully he's still in the league because he's been fantastic. The other one, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, Cam Bairstow. That's all official with the Illawarra Hawks.
Not Illawarra, Drewy, the Hawks. Stop saying
Illawarra.
I know.
Coach.
What's wrong with you? You get old, brother. You get old.
Surely the Illawarra people aren't going to be upset with me.
If you keep saying it, they will. I'm telling you now.
Well, I don't intentionally do it.
I spoke to the owner the other day, and he said, you tell that Daisy, if he keeps calling us Illawarra, I'm never doing an interview again.
I can't. Coach, it's hard.
You said it 50 times. The Hawks.
Coach, they started in the league at Illawarra. They changed to Wollongong. It took me 2 years just when I started calling them Wollongong. They went back to Illawarra, and now they're not making it easier for me. But that is a big pickup. And when you think of the Illawarra Hawks, Coach, I don't know a lot about this man. You've done a little bit of research.
I can't find anything on him, but I know he's big. I know he must be talented. He's 18, 19 years old. What 19-year-old signs a 3-year deal?
Yes.
So he must be talented.
Well, Max Darling is his name, and
apparently he's a good rebounder, and he's strong inside.
Yes, and you jump on YouTube, but I guess we're showing our true colours. We did the best research, and perhaps our research is not as good as others.
And I tell you what, though, you look at their signings, they have some talent down there now. Remember when we first started this show, they had 1 or 2 guys signed. They've signed some real talent.
Yes.
The Hawks have signed some real talent, brother.
They certainly have.
I'm looking for them to make the playoffs. We're the Gorgon. They're going to make the playoffs.
Well, you poo-pooed me when I said it.
That's before they signed all these superstars.
Well, that's what I said at the time because I was all buoyant about it. And you said, are they going to make the playoffs? They're going to play the playoffs. And they hadn't signed one single player. And I said, well, because Gorgon's there, I like their chances.
And we all know Gorgon likes to spend a little money, doesn't he? He likes to spend a little money. So I just hope that
history says he spends it the right way.
Yeah,
and, so we wish them well, and it looks they've been super aggressive. Nate Jawai is the other one that's official. We all sort of knew that was going to happen, but he's signed on the dotted line with the Cairns Taipans, and he is an imposing man in the NBL. It's really good for Cairns, and most importantly, Nate Jawai is a great individual.
Yes, he is.
And he has accepted his role.
Yep.
And understand that certain times in certain situations, how he can contribute may vary. But I think that's for Mike Kelly and the Cairns Taipans.
Did they bring those 2 imports back?
That's there. We haven't heard it, and word is that's the case. And DJ Newble is the one that's going to be the missing link when they have 2 now, it's 2 imports, so someone had to go. So DJ Newble is another one. Let's hope that someone picks him up. But Machado's a superstar. He was MVP worthy. And so they're going to have another fantastic lineup. Hey, Copes, time is getting away from us as it does every single week. But we're going to leave on something that got me really angry. When I was a youngster, Larry Bird was on the wall.
Oh,
I watched Larry Bird. I wanted to be like Larry Bird. Everything Larry Bird did on a basketball court was what I wanted to emulate, and millions of others wanted to do the same. And he is a legend, a superstar, and should be lauded. Well, I'm a bit concerned because someone has taken the opportunity to be very disrespectful and disparaging to greatness and has found a tomato. That's right, a tomato that they say looks like the great Larry Bird. It pains me to even talk about this, but I only talk about it to heap my disgust and disdain on anyone that wants to use a tomato in the same sentence as Larry Bird.
Hey, Drewy.
Yes.
It looks like him a little bit. Let me tell you something. I got a chance to play against Larry Bird. You're talking about me talking trash.
Yes.
He was the biggest trash talker in the NBA. Yes. That's no joke. But he can back it up. Yeah. I have the utmost respect for Larry Bird. Sort of looks like him a little bit. But Larry, we love you.
Yeah, we love him dearly. But he was one of the – and you got to sit on the sidelines.
I got a chance to play in that game. It was in Connecticut.
Yes.
Not at the Boston Gardens. Yes. We're in Connecticut. We were down by 20, 25 hits while I got a chance to play in the game. And
Larry was still in the game.
It was we were down in the first half.
Yeah.
He was talking trash to Charles Barkley on the bench.
Yep.
And him and Charles kept going back and forth and sort of,
Copes, I remember a game when Larry Bird was playing and he was getting bored with the game because he was so great. And apparently he went out, I think it was against Portland, and just played the game and had 20-plus, shooting only with his left hand. That's the sort of greatness that he had.
He was that good.
And the other thing, he was the first one, I think, that was putting on a show. I think it was in Atlanta, against Atlanta, and putting on a 50-point incredible output and hitting shots all over the place. And it was the first time that I can ever remember an opposition bench rolling, laughing, and carrying on the sideline because of the greatness of an opponent. Now, unfortunately, that's frowned upon these days. You're not allowed to do that because you were there. But do you remember that game?
Of course. And Larry was the kind of guy who, he wasn't that explosive off his first step. He couldn't jump. He wasn't going to dunk on you.
Yes.
But some of the trickery and some of the shots that he made was – you think about it now, it just gives you goosebumps. He was that good.
Yeah, he was a star. As far as bench reactions, opposition benches I'm talking.
Yep.
How would you feel if you're there and you're out there battling away? You're one of the guys that are out there in junk time, and because they're trying to get Larry fitty, you're up there and he hits this crazy fadeaway shot, and you see your teammates on the bench in awe. I don't think you're the sort of bloke that'd be too happy with that.
Well, that happened to me. We playing in the 1989-90. We playing against the Chicago Bulls, the first round of the playoffs. We won the Atlantic Division. Michael Jordan's given us numbers, and he made a couple of shots. And one time I jumped up, and Jim Lynham, our head coach, looked down and say, "Are you crazy? What is wrong with you?" So it happens, man. It happens when someone's putting on a show. The human nature comes out, and you just enjoy the game.
No, and I remember a time we were in Philly. This is while I was suited up, and I remember this game for two reasons. It was a game in the first half, and Pop looked out the bench. "Hey, Gage, you're in." I mean, what's going on? So I went up, stripped off, went to the bench, checking in, doing a little groin stretches, getting in there, nervous as anyone could ever be. And then we went on a 6-0 run. Gage, get back here. And I had to do the walk of shame.
Oh, what a
back in. So I remember it for that game, but I also remember it for a game where Allen Iverson just put on a clinic. Now, he was doing things, and the difference between the Atlanta response to Larry Bird, it was done because Pop was up there, and you sort of got to know your position when Pop's in charge. But the conversation was like, "God damn, this guy is a freak." Now I know why he's the answer. I mean, you're trying to do it in a less overt way, that you're just in awe of someone. And I suppose that's probably the way it should be done to show respect.
Absolutely.
Hey, Copes, that's all we what a show. I've thoroughly enjoyed today's show. And
I think I enjoy it. You know what? I think the show is getting better. I honestly think it's getting better.
Well, then we get dozens of viewers each week, Cope. Dozens.
Dozens.
So we are doing some extraordinary things, but we're having fun. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And hopefully people will jump on board. And if you like us, jump on all the social media channels. Copes, as I said last week, you're more au fait, but there's Spotify. How well you go to
Spotify,
Apple, I think you've got a little. And then if you want to watch the show, jump on YouTube. You can follow myself and the great Leonard Copeland on Twitter. I'm Andrew Gaze 10.
And I'm Leonard Copeland, at Leonard Copeland.
At Leonard Copeland.
There you go.
We're not prolific tweeters, but we're there if you want to. Again, we don't take kindly to abuse. So just keep it real positive. That's the way we like it.
No tomato jokes.
No, and if anyone throws up any.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Actually, I want to throw out a challenge to our listeners. If you can find a vegetable or a fruit that looks like a famous person,
are you kidding me?
Send us your images. A vegetable or fruit that looks like a famous person, sporting or otherwise. We want to see it, and we'll share it with on our program if it's somewhat humorous. Hey, Copes, another outstanding performance by you. It's great. Looking forward to all the games coming up on the weekend with the NBA games, and most importantly, our heart goes out to the Melbourne United people. We are absolutely with you. Get better soon, and stay safe for them and for everyone out there. Thanks for joining us. We love having your company, and we'll chat to you again next week.
See you, Drew.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.